Hey folks, MasakoX here. With Raditz being maligned throughout most of the popular media that is going within the Dragon Ball universe, seriously, the goal here on this particular channel has been to breathe new life into this very much sidelined and neglected character. But enough about our own personal grievances over his stature in the timeline. Suppose that we did something about it. Suppose that we had a situation where the likes of Raditz wound up being the one that got the treatment that Goku did in the original, landing on Earth instead of the one that we are more accustomed to. In this scenario, both of the siblings tried to escape the clutches of the Freeza Force, but Kakarot got the short end of the stick, getting caught, and Raditz, sadly being true to his nature, fled. Even though Kakarot wound up in the Force, he did find some solace with good old Uncle Nappa, and thanks to a gift from Raditz years later from the Dragon Balls, mostly out of guilt, Kakarot gained much power, which kept Vegeta at bay. If you like the sound of this and many other what-if stories on this channel, do please like this video and subscribe to get these chapters as soon as they come out. Clicking the bell, obviously. Also, I do respond to comments in the first hour after the video goes live, so do leave your feedback, and I will see it. Cheers! In the last part though, things weren't looking so cheery for Kakarot. In this story, where we tell two different narratives, our little Kakarot and Nappa have been played by the likes of Zarbon, who had in turn played Frieza into snooping into Nappa's plan to undermine them with their supposed power gains. In recent times though, it had all halted all of a sudden, and that had gotten the green hunk rather perturbed. Why? Or was this another ruse? In the end, our duo got lured to a planetoid on the pretense of finding Raditz, Kakarot's brother, in distress. But instead, they were the ones in distress. It all sadly led to Nappa's demise, him giving up his life so that Kakarot might be able to escape and try and find his brother on his own. It was a gamble, a risky gamble, but Nappa had had enough, quite frankly, of being under Frieza's boot, as well as being patronised by the likes of Zarbon. Well, to be fair, one good thing did come out of this. He had gotten his point across. As Kakarot fled the scene in his pod, he couldn't sense any powers down on the planetoid that they were once on. Nappa was gone, but he had taken Zarbon and Dodoria with him. All three of them were gone, vaporized by the Blaze Pillar variant of Nappa's volcano explosion, the strongest version of that technique there is going. As for Raditz, well, after he had managed to single-handedly decimate Muscle Tower, things were looking very bad for the Red Ribbon Army. In fact, they were disastrously bad. Raditz, now with the bit between his teeth, set out with Bulma to find the remaining Dragon Balls with much more gusto than in the original. And thusly, this leads to a much more speedy Red Ribbon saga, since the Saiyan is now quite adamant that these creeps do not harm another soul after the events of Jingle Village. Because of this, they are able to retrieve the Dragon Ball underwater much faster, and without the need of a submarine, thanks to Raditz being able to propel himself more rapidly underwater, and because of his massive big lungs. Because he likes to talk and shout a lot, have you noticed? The 3-star ball is found with no troubles, and General Blue doesn't even get a look in. He did try to confront Raditz on his own, despite being advised against this from Commander Red to not engage directly with the Saiyan, after reports had come in that he was the one who was able to tear through everything that they had thrown at him. Blue was determined though to do the army proud, and all that got him was a cracked jaw, and he had to go and scamper away for his life. Raditz was starting to get fed up with these guys. To him, they were pests. We need to find their base! Raditz, are you sure that they deserve that? With your power, you're gonna kill many people. Can you live with yourself after doing such a thing? Raditz looked sad. True, he didn't want to waste all of them, but he had to do something. He knew that they would stop at nothing to find the Dragon Balls to the Red Ribbon Army, and if they got them without interference, even more pain and sorrow could be laid upon the Earth. This, what he was about to do, was the lesser of two evils. I don't speak much of my time before I landed on Earth, but the truth is, I am a Saiyan, and we Saiyans are bred for conflict. We are born to fight. This planet has made me softer than I would have liked, and I don't regret that. After all, it's because of that I met you. But in this life, I understand that sometimes you need to go big or give up. This is one of those times. If I don't stop the Red Ribbon Army, nobody will stop them. Bulma nodded, although tinged with some somber thoughts. Just promise me this. Only go after them if they attack one more time. If we can get the Dragon Balls first, then we could perhaps find a less destructive way of stopping them. He knew it wouldn't be likely, but he promised. But if they do not stop me. And as you know, when looking for the 4-star bowl in the sacred land of Korin, Tao struck in the sacred land of Korin. But that strike didn't last long. Raditz had arrived to acquire the Dragon Ball, which had been located outside of the eruption. There, he also met Upa and Bora, who inquired as to why he had come here. But before Raditz could fully explain he was there for good, Tao accosted him. I am afraid your wicked ways are over. Hand over all of your Dragon Balls and I will go quietly. Failure to do so, but Raditz rushed him and clotheslined him. But then came Tao's tongue, striking Raditz on the neck. Bora gasped. That was supposedly Tao's ultimate stealth technique. Raditz would surely be dead in mere minutes, or seconds. But instead of dying, Raditz instead grimaced with pain, as if a bee had stung him badly, like in a place where you couldn't reach to scratch. Gah! What did you do that for? Tao rolled around and looked stunned. What? How did you survive that? Was that supposed to be your ultimate technique? Well, if we are sharing, let me show you one of mine. Keep your eye on the birdie. And Tao was wiped off the face of the earth. Bora and Upa were astounded. The strongest mercenary in the world had been battered about like a rag doll and then destroyed by this newcomer. They were grateful and a bit scared of this merciless man's erasure, and the father deemed him worthy of learning about the legendary Korin atop Korin's tower. I mean, granted, that was a little bit of a bold and risky move, but hey, no Tao, good? Upon arrival, Korin welcomes the Saiyan and knows why he is here since he can read Raditz's mind. A Saiyan, huh? Well, I heard about you lot, but you don't seem to be all that bad. After all, you've done a lot of good for Earth while you've been here, pal. So tell you what, I have a test for you. Try and grab this water. If you do and drink it, it'll grant you great power. Raditz was amazed and agreed to this condition, but he was surprised that this cat was surprisingly fast. Granted, he was very close in grabbing it given his power, but the cat was just that little bit quicker, so that means he would only just miss it, narrowly able to prevent Raditz from getting his prize of great potential power. He wasn't used to things not going his way, and also he was desperate to get on with his plan of destroying the Red Ribbon Army HQ, begin his attack. I know you want to get going, kiddo, but you being impatient ain't gonna make this go any faster. Clear your mind. Raditz did his best to do so over the many hours, but it was hard. It took him all day to finally have the rationale to finally be able to nab that water from Korin's staff. Raditz drank from it, to find out it was just regular tap water. But then he was also stunned as to why the cat looked even more stunned. Kiddo, do you realize what you just did? Yeah, I did all of that for lousy tap water. No, what you did in a day took your master 3 years to accomplish, pal. Raditz blinked. Really? Wow. And with that, Korin offered Raditz a bed for the night and a sensu bean for his trouble. Raditz ate the bean and felt all his energy return to him and then some. He hadn't felt this good in years. You're an endearing one, Raditz, but clearly you're distracted. You go do your thing, then we'll talk. Raditz nodded, and the next day, he set out for his quest. Meanwhile, Kakarot was on a quest of his own. After having narrowly escaped certain death at the hands of Frieza's 2 henchmen, he had lost his mentor and friend at arms. Nappa had given up his life so that he might live. Now, Kakarot was alone, with only his thoughts for company. Even though he was in a temporary stasis lock for a long time, he could still dream. He dreamt of that same moment of Nappa blowing himself up, but this time he was in the middle of it instead of seeing it from atop. The flames reaching up and the light getting brighter. Him seeing the figures of the 3 fighters slowly white out and deteriorate. He was there, helpless, a spectator, watching them evaporate into nothing. All that was left was dust and a massive hole in the ground. Kakarot was awoken from his slumber when the pod that he was in had reported that he was approaching a space station. Kakarot was still rather weak after the whole ordeal and the emotional upheaval he had undergone, but because of his Saiyan nature, he had to get himself some food, or else he would starve. Just then, a voice came over the speaker, stating that all Saiyan pods must report to Docking Bay C and undergo inspection before landing. Throughout this, Kakarot was nervous. What if they tipped off Frieza about this unauthorized trip? He'd be looking for him. But fortunately for him, he had been cleared to land, and the purpose of that inspection was more to do with ensuring that everything was above board. Freezer Force vessels recently have been known to carry bugs and wires for blackmailing purposes, but Kakarot's pod had none of that. They weren't able to figure out what it was specifically, so they scanned it anyway. But they didn't know that the bugs and communicators, these people, were the scouters. And since Kakarot had smashed his long ago, he was in the clear. The young one knew, though, he had to find food, and fast. But thankfully, being a Saiyan carried certain benefits. Kakarot's potential had gotten around, and since he had been known to be a teammate of Vegeta's, he was given special treatment at the particular eateries here.
We know that you Saiyans like to eat. Put in a good word for Lord Frieza, huh, when you're done?
Having good favour with Frieza got you additional perks in the process in these parts. The young one felt rather vulnerable though, but all of that would change soon enough. The next day, after Kakarot had gotten some rest, he was accosted by a grunt. His world had been decimated by Saiyans, and he had recognized this one as one of those monkeys that had been present during said decimation. He had figured that with this one being separated from the prince and the other one, that he could get an easy win out of this encounter. He must have been the weak dog's body. But with Kakarot unburdened from the scouter, as well as his obligation to hold his power back, he quickly wailed on the Chancer. And this caught the eye of a person who had been drinking from a nearby vendor. The shoebill had watched the whole thing go down, and cogs started to turn in their mind. "Hey kid!" she shouted over to Kakarot. Kakarot shouted back, "What do you want? You want a piece of this too? I'm not afraid to hit girls!" "Oh kid, I ain't no girl." She stood up and walked over to Kakarot, clear to show she had no weapons. "What's a brat like you doing around these parts? I know you're a Saiyan and all, but where's your princely escort?" Well..." Kakarot was being careful not to reveal too much to this stranger. "I'm looking for someone. My brother." "You sure you ain't gone rogue? I don't think Frieza would like it if someone were to, I don't know, dub you in." Kakarot looked serious. "If you do, I won't hesitate in..." She waved her wings. "Spare me! I ain't gonna do that. But I bet he will be looking for you. Come with me, kid. I'll give you somewhere to lay low for a while. Let them assume you're dead or something. What's the catch? You gotta do a little work for me. I'm sure you'll like it. It involves some fighting." That didn't seem so bad. After all, this was a chance to truly show off his skills, free from persecution or judgment. "Wait, if I fight, won't that attract attention from Frieza?" "Nah, where we operate, Frieza can't touch you. There's a sort of unwritten rule between our organizations. Besides, he's a big fan of our stuff anyway." She took his hand. "Name's Mota. Kakarot, was it?" "How do you know my name?" "That grunt had a loud mouth. The one you wasted. You don't forget a name like that. And if I have it my way, plenty will be cheering that name soon enough. Will this get me closer to finding my brother? If you do well, we'll work something out." With that, Mota and Kakarot set off for a base of operations, Mediani Galactic, the home of the greatest fighting series in North Galaxy. And if you want to find out more about them, you can check out the video up top. Back on Earth, Raditz had undergone his test with Korin and was ready to take out the Red Ribbon Army. He hadn't told Bulma what had been going on and what he was about to do. He knew she'd be worried sick, but he had to go and do this now and ensure she wouldn't get involved. He thought about this, and having the heiress to Capsule Corp's future and fortune present at their biggest competitor's evisceration wouldn't look good amongst the board of directors. Without contacting anyone, Raditz headed straight for their HQ aboard Nimbus for a more stealthy approach. They wouldn't be expecting a giant magic cloud. In this timeline, the tearing apart of the Red Ribbon Army is even more brutal. Raditz had chosen this moment to unleash his ultimate technique as his first strike, the Double Sunday. The resulting blast took out about a third of the complex at once, immediately sending the entire unit into a state of panic. Raditz then rushed in and easily managed to evade the security drones, guards, troops, pretty much everything. They were too busy with that first blast. The brief stint with Korin had cleared his mind and given him an extra boost in strength. It wasn't a big leap exactly, but it was much more than he would have achieved on his own in the same amount of time. Better than nothing. At last, he gazed eyes with Commander Red, and the two of them stared each other down.
"So, you're the punk that's been causing trouble, huh?" spouted Red. "Think you can get away with this?"
Raditz walked forward, catching the bullets from Red's pistol with ease.
"Oh yes. You see, I ain't your average freedom fighter. I am a Saiyan, and we Saiyans don't like it when our turf is being challenged. This is my world, and I won't let you use the Dragon Balls to bend it to your will.
Red had heard enough though. He released the charges in the roof to collapse it, all in an attempt to crush Raditz. But it failed.
I'm sorry, but was that supposed to hurt?
Said a rather stoked Saiyan. Yeah, the rest of the army, including Red, were beaten to a pulp. After that, Raditz flew back to Capture Corp to find Bulma. She had found out about his little venture, and was just glad, frankly, he had gotten out of there in one piece, and had done his best to not go too ham on them.
Believe me, I wanted to, but since you asked me not to, I did so. I care for you too much in this world to ignore that.
Bulma smiled. Good. I'm glad Saiyans care.
Well, not all of them. You got lucky with me. Now let's go get that last Dragon Ball, huh?
About that. The radar's been playing up. We got 6, but the 7th one ain't showing up. Fresh out of ideas, they call Roshi for advice, and he suggests they go to his sister's place, since she's a whiz at finding things with her magic. Intrigued, the pair of them immediately head out for a palace in the desert. When they get there though, Bardock had already sensed their approach.
So, Roshi sent you here. To use my talents for your own ends.
Raditz confirmed her thoughts.
Well, pay up.
Sorry, what?
My services ain't cheap, bucko. If you pay me right, I will tell you where the last Dragon Ball is. That is the thing you wish to know, yes?
Bulma confirmed that, and was about to dig out her wallet to pay, before Raditz stepped forward.
Surely there must be another way to find out, right? I don't want to part with our cash so readily to someone we barely meet, an old hag.
Bardock, perturbed from this interruption and insult, offered up a challenge instead of her 5 strongest fighters, since he was so determined to annoy her. She decided to be really venomous with this one. Raditz fought her first fighters and defeated them with the greatest of ease. But when it came to the final one, Raditz couldn't hold a candle to them, and he knew it. This was a blast from the past. Not wearing a mask, standing almost 6 foot tall, was a terrifying fighter. Bardock wouldn't have been so rash, but she was that angry.
So, said the fighter, what have you got for me? Still a little coward? Raditz. Father!
Bulma gasped. This was Raditz's dad? This was Bardock? Well, if this has gotten you curious about what Bardock could do in another story, check out this story here to find out what might have happened had he survived.